quite sure about
yeah,
that.
let's do it. Let's do it together. And after that, okay, guys. Hello. Today we can talk about smart cities. Peter, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Peter Chun. I'm in New York City. My company is actually based in London and New York. I'm actually operating 3 different entities, and we're Small Cities Forum, which is a nonprofit organization based in London. Archive Labs is the company that raising the investment fund to initiate the small city projects around the world. And Accenture is a tech accelerator based in New York and London. So we have nurtured more than 300 startups in the last 7 years. Then we probably just more than 10 companies have become unicorns. So it's quite successful stories we have. I was involved myself as a master planner of smart cities since 2014-15. Starting from London, I was a national master planner in South Korea, and now I'm dealing with the Ukrainian smart cities and Vietnamese smart cities at the moment. We're trying to build up more future city initiatives in London and a couple of cities in Europe as well at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, and what is a smart city?
Well,
what does this mean?
Because I'm not quite, I don't really push people to understand the smart city is this, precisely. From my perspective, it's kind of the process of the evolving the cities based on the culture, economies, and people's general thoughts. Because cities is not really object. It is just like a human being. The time goes by, the cities, the entire picture of the cities and the functions and the contents of the cities is definitely just changed, right? So I think that smart cities is not about only ITs or the technologies or maybe the contents. It should be like kind of combination of those kind of functions. A lot of the companies and the governments these days are talking about IT cities or something like that, right? So you can see that the cars flying, or we can use the very the fancy solutions and using something. I mean, your home is like a smarter, or your the payments is really smarter, like a fintech. Of course, those kind of functions very important too. But I think that those solutions and technologies is only for the supporting the general views of the cities. It should be changed in the future. So, for example, I actually traveled myself into Amsterdam back in 1991. The city of Amsterdam, they already started with the first generation of a small city back then. Because the cars running around the cities, they run by diesel and gasoline, and it actually was a big problem, having a lot of the air pollutions back then. So I think the leadership of Amsterdam, they try to, take those kind of cars out of the city. So instead of them, they just put in kind of the sharing bike systems in the city. Every corner of the streets, they have the sharing bikes. So you just pay something, and then you just ride a bike and around the cities. I think that was really cool back then. But now, if you actually go to Amsterdam, still a lot of cars are running around the cities. So it's not, we cannot really define cities. This city should be this, right? Because generation by generation, the demands should be definitely different. So that's why I emphasize the city should be based on who is living in the city, right? So the human-centric,
Interesting.
human-centric and people-centric cities should be the aiming point. Then we need to satisfy the people, residents, non-residents, as travelers. They have to, think about they have to come back again this city. So we are trying to, see cities in a way of resilient and much more sustainable in terms of economies, and also
It's all about quality of life.
you can say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what is like what does a smart city look like? What is the best smart city?
Also, because well, that's a good question, and at the same time, it's not that really appropriate questions this time. I think that most of the small city initiatives that started a few years ago, but a small city project is kind of a long-term shot thing, and so we cannot really define which one is the best. But there are a lot of rankings provided by all different foundation and governments or the NGOs. Some part of it I understand and I can really support that. But most of the cases it's not that really great at the moment, because some kind of demands on the satisfaction of the residents or the travelers, and even we need to think about sustainable economies in there, and also the circular economy and eco-friendly kind of agenda is also very important too. So I think that a lot of approaches by the leadership of the government, they try to think about the building of their small cities, one of the best in the world. So you probably maybe heard that a lot of money coming into Saudi Arabia's kind of NEOM projects, and 300 city initiatives by the Chinese government and 100 small city projects by Indian government. There are so many initiatives and plans at the moment. But even though I know some UAE cities like near the the international port to Abu Dhabi. So they build up the cities like an energy platform, something. But the thing is still the number of people living in the city is very small. We cannot say that this is really successful or not. So I think that probably more than 90% of the small cities around the world is like new development cities, kind of creating new cities from the scratch. So, but what I'm talking about small city is number one. I mean, the top priority of the city, it should be done, should be initiated, into the original city, kind of old city, something. So the city should be rehabilitated and also regenerated. So urban regeneration is the most important thing at the moment, because you cannot move people one place to another, because the world population is crazy now. We're talking about COVID-19 these days, and think about 100 years ago, there was a Spanish flu that actually lasted for 10 years. During that time, I don't know, like I cannot really believe the kind of statistical number out of this kind of cases, but the Google said about 100 million people died in 10 years. So back then, the worldwide population is like 3 billion something. Right now, we're living in this planet with more than 8 billion population. So comparing to Spanish flu, is probably a lot of people will die in the next few years. So I think the number one priority at the moment and how the city should be aiming at. So I live, you probably, New York City, you just live here now.
Yes. And what is the difference between, for example, New York City and London? What is like the like a smart city style?
Well, actually, London Smart City, I actually just created, I was involved myself into the planning for intelligent city in Canary Wharf Financial District. So it's like AI city. So it was well done, because we just really focused on startup initiative, bringing the innovation ecosystem in Canary Wharf. Because maybe you can compare Wall Street, like downtown Manhattan. So money's there, just like Canary Wharf is like a Wall Street in Europe. But during the day, I mean, after work and the weekends, it's kind of nobody's there because no content. Only like companies and banking stuff and services. It's not about one city. So based on the AI intelligence, we're trying to bring a lot of innovation in there because you cannot really imagine startups in Wall Street. You don't believe it here, right? So because probably you can see that the Hudson Yards or Brooklyn kind of offside of the mainstream. But we're trying to build up this innovation ecosystem in the most expensive region in London. So it was quite well because that's why fintech and cybersecurity was really successful. Then we just combined the kind of old-fashioned, the financial services with the smart financial services. So, but the London is, you can say that almost 50% of the United Kingdom, and New York is one of the kind of pieces of the economic ecosystem in the United States. So you can really compare between London and New York, but innovation level is not that quite well compared to London, because London has been changed is a big time. I mean, since David Cameron's policies to create a tech initiative. So London Tech Initiative was really quite successful. I think the number of startups around the world, London is leading the whole world, not even Silicon Valley. Of course, the unicorns, probably you can see a lot of unicorns from Silicon Valley or but London is quite successful these days too. And I believe that more than 300,000 startups, they actually anchored in London. But that was before COVID-19. So we need to think about what to be shifted during this time or later. New York is almost, dead zone right now. Is doomed. I mean, you can see that a lot of real estates in New York City here. I don't believe that they can be really successful, or maybe they definitely in trouble to invite the people or residents. Even you can walk around the city.
Yeah.
Like, think about the hotels. Hotels now, they don't know what to do, because even the Latino mayor of New York, he actually just had a new policies a couple of days ago, and any visitors to New York outside of New York State, they have to self-quarantine for 14 days. Even so, who's gonna come? So nobody comes to here to experience like a New York lifestyle, and the proportion of the revenue size of the New York entirely, I think maybe 30% of the income comes from this tourism. So this kind of revenue is all gone now. I mean, it's been almost 4 months, and I'm afraid of actually this kind of trends maybe lasting another few months at least, probably maybe by the end of next year. So this COVID-19 is another homework and assignments for every mega city. So I think the major agenda, the theme of the small city should be definitely changed. So because the city is, there should be a reason why we need a city like New York and London, because in many different the reasons.
Yeah.
But if the mega city survives, they really want to survive, and they have to be much more active and trying to set up new policies and protect the citizens, or maybe invite people in terms of the businesses or tourism. That will be very, very difficult for them. And so I think that if the issues on this kind of safety agenda is really solved in the cities like New York and London, then we can just move forward very quickly to other subjects as well. But it's a big challenge at the moment.
Yes. And what is the difference between the opportunities for example, for the 5G or mobility, or maybe food after the COVID? What do
So
you think about like the mobility, like energy too?
yeah, that's a good thing too. I mean, so energy, we need to think about the future of our next generation. So lots of, you know, the spiking population around the world that also has the high impact on the energy policies. So I think that a lot of the industries now thinking about the next level, next page of the energy ecosystem. So I think that the energy is one of the big issues and big themes under the category of the smart city at the moment. 5G, a lot of industries and government people, they're talking about 5Gs. You know, you just probably heard about the standardizations on 5G or something. So that will be kind of the battle between the countries now. And also, we already know that the very sensitive issues on the Chinese, the telecommunication carriers like Huawei and the other companies.
Yeah.
I think that will be invisible battle between the countries to lead the future ecosystem. I think that the existence of 5G is probably really a lot helpful to changing the cities in a much more diverse way because of speed and velocity of the exchanging all the data. Also. Because the smart city is also is a big chunk of the body of the data. So data is collected, and the data should be analyzed in some way. Then it actually feels like everybody's demands, just like a nick of time. I think that the energy is quite, extensive in terms of we're just talking about the smart city in general. But have you actually drive? I'm not quite sure. I probably haven't experienced driving the electricity car like Tesla.
Yeah.
So I think that those movement to the regulations on the cars run by the diesel and gasoline that should be shifted in the next few years. I think probably 2030 or 2035. You're not going to actually see that kind of the cars run by gas and gasoline in the city like here in New York or maybe London because those I think that the platforms like EV charging stations or maybe smart grids, the platforms and P2P energy platforms, that will be actually one of the key mainstream in the next few years. It's not only like a smart city, but smart city contains many different functions. And because the data will be shared and analyzed in a way, because the smart city, I mean, we're talking about blockchain, like, we're talking about the securities, we're talking about many P2P level things. It is like kind of the contents diversity. So if you have to bring your cars, electricity cars, also the connectivities between the people, other peoples, and also the EV charging station platform. So your life is connected and everywhere. So connectivity based on the data and connectivity based on security, connectivity based on the high speed of telecommunication systems is all related. So we cannot really say that those kind of issues like, telecommunication, like 5G and energy separately. It should be like a mingle altogether in one spot.
Okay, and I have a question about food. What's going on with food and healthcare?
So I'm not quite sure that. Okay, so agriculture issue is because generally speaking, farmers, they live outside of the city, right? So suburbs or maybe countryside, they grow the crops, and so they deliver the food from their side to the city. So supply chain is a key function out of this agriculture agenda. I think that in the near future, I think this kind of old-fashioned way of agriculture industry should be definitely changed as well. Like urban agriculture, we can call it like a smart agriculture tech, or we can just call it in short agri-tech, in urban agri-tech or something like that. Another comparison on this one, you can also think about the factory. Why a lot of factories? Why your products, like even your smartphones or your cars, like manufactured in different countries, like in Czech Republic, in Europe, or maybe Vietnam or in China, because of labor cost. Because all the cost is actually generated by those function, like labor cost, and then the average wage is lower, is the much better for the companies to manufacture something. And smart factory is something different one. So for example, Apple doesn't have to be producing their products in overseas anymore. At a certain point, everything is automated and intelligent, and so you don't have to think about the high labor cost. It's based on the automation systems and AI, of course. So I think that agriculture and the manufacturing systems, that will be the big change also within a few years later. I think that you can see that kind of the tower of the crops or the fields. It's not about kind of in the field. Generally speaking, if you just go out to the countryside, you can see a lot of winery house and something like that. That will be actually some. I cannot say that 100%, but there will be some portion of the production should be done, should be completed in the city, using some buildings or some sites in the city, and that is the benefits for that. They can also reduce the supply chain or something like that. Yeah. E-commerce is also the big one too, just Amazon.
Yeah, like a delivery. Yeah, and delivery too.
So the delivery is done like between the city or maybe in.
Yeah.
You can also
and plus for the robotics and for the health technologies, medical side as well. Yes. What do you think?
So robotics. Robotics is also a good one. I'm not actually a philosopher, but and also
no, but let's talk like about what is like the best investment opportunity now for the institutional investors, or maybe private equity or family funds who want to stay like they be in touch. They've something sustainable, they've impact investment, who want to be the smart cities. And what is like the opportunities for the investors actually in New York City, in US market? What do you think?
So I don't see that kind of really positive future for New York City at the moment, because New York was not that really great in terms of innovation ecosystem, and they still
like you say, it's completely different. The guys from Asia market or London, right. And it's like a huge opportunities for the investors.
Right, because we have the ecosystem in Silicon Valley. New York, we don't want to be like Silicon Valley. That kind of thing is also, Amazon was actually trying to tapping into, from Seattle into New York. They negotiated with the New York City leadership, and here in Long Island City, and the leadership of Long Island City, they don't want it. So we don't want that.
I remember this.
So this is really, I don't know. I don't really get that, but that kind of mentality is still existing. That was the kind of really majority groups, they think that way. So without the, big change of the leadership mindset in New York City, I don't think that we can see something really big change in New York City or another level of the prosperity in the city. But I can say that the reason why we're still here, because still New York is the hub of the finance and also the hub of real estate and everything. and trying to just inject kind of a little minor thing about the innovation ecosystem here, not about the real estate. We're talking about Hudson Yards and innovation, like kind of big guys coming in, we just like nurture some startups. It's not an innovation ecosystem. It's a real estate, perspective. So they stick with that kind of the mindset now. But I think that during pandemic, post-pandemic, New York City will be the worst victim out of it. But I think that if we make the city as a test bed to make something more better, I think this for people or organizations like me or myself.
Interesting. And what do you think about programs for the startups, smart city startups in New York City?
So I don't believe that that's a really small city initiative now, but my company is actually invited by the Urban Tech Hub. So Urban Tech Hub is actually controlled by New York City government. So about 60 companies there, all about the small city agenda. So it's actually picked by the New York City government together with also the landlord of the building. It's actually next to the Grand Central Station. The thing is, since March, nobody wants to actually come into the office, so it's actually ecosystem is now destroyed. But I think that the smart city programs, and I'm actually trying to build something different way. It's not about accelerator. So accelerator is just like the investment, just like kind of the 500 startups or Techstars and something like that. They have the existing model, but the smart city model is something different. It should be like open competition. Of course, the company, each one of them, they can be invested by something, but we are convincing the investor or maybe group of investments to invest in the ecosystem, the whole thing, not individual companies. So, for example, I'm dealing with the tech sandbox model in Vietnam right now. So we are inviting up around 150 companies around the world and 50 companies are local enterprises. So under the umbrella of tech sandbox and the global high potential startups work together with local big guys like conglomerates and enterprises together based on the themes and based on the guidelines that we provide them with. And this kind of model and really helpful for those companies because about 35% that they will be picked by the program within a year, like 12 months. And the winners definitely just get, have the signing contract with the municipality governments, and they actually get the money, like project fees from them. And also our SPC, like a special purpose corporation, have a different set of the fund for the high growth fund. So the companies definitely have opportunities to win the projects, like as a reference, and they generate revenue. At the same time, they actually get the money from the investment in terms of the high growth fund. So they can actually have another chances to move forward to other small city opportunities. This is actually something that we are building right now. So one small thing that we're actually working on here under the name of PropTech. So PropTech Hub is the one thing that we're actually aiming at here in New York City. The New York is PropTech. So if you're actually just trying to discuss with the leadership, anybody in New York City, we are just building up a small city. Nobody listens to you, right? Because what is a small city, right? So this is kind of manifesto. From them, I mean, small city is not real businesses. And it doesn't have any kind of reality. But PropTech is different because real estate here. So something visible. And we combining with the concept and contents and solutions and everything, which they don't have or they're looking for. And I think that COVID-19 triggers this kind of movement very quickly because they're losing the customers and clients. Most of the buildings right now, if you just look around, maybe more than 30% empty, right? So, so PropTech is another version of the smart city is PropTech here in New York City. So I think that the real estate giants around the world, you can name London, New York, and probably Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo. Yeah. So I think that prop tech is the kind of real version of small cities in this kind of mega cities suffering from this whole COVID-19 at the moment.
Interesting. What is if they talk about insights, what do you think it should be like next generation of the technology? Maybe artificial intelligence, maybe something new in VR, maybe green architecture,
Mm-hmm.
maybe something new plus in education technologies.
So
or remote work. Yeah, remote work. It's really important right now too.
Right. So, okay, just let's face the music. The smartphones, we actually, enjoy this one. The first smartphone was introduced by Steve Jobs back in 2007. So it's been only 13 years. How many versions of the Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy? It's 20 different versions at the moment. So every two pieces of upgrades has been done in each year. iPhone is probably maybe 11 different versions at the moment, right? So you never know, because the last 10 years is not going to be the same as the 10 years in the future. So the future, I think that every year should be different. So after this COVID-19 or during pandemic, it's not really easy to predict something. For example, when I worked in Wall Street a long time ago, back in 1999, when I tried to get enter some specific like a restricted area in the building, there was like a special access code. It's not about the number, access. It's about the pupil, like the eye contact. So that technology already just begun like 20 years ago. But the thing is, commercialization is the key, and is the market really want this kind of thing or something? But the big change at the moment is not about individual or one of the specific solutions or technologies. I think that digital transformation is the key now, because the smartphones, the most important thing of a smart city brings to our community or our lives is the digital transformation. P2P ecosystem is the key. I mean, just like, let's talk about remittance. There was one company that was nurtured under the Level 39 ecosystem. One of them is called TransferWise. So TransferWise, they developed the new remittance systems. They're competing with the existing commercial banks like Barclays, Network. So this guy is actually dominating this market. So I think the problem maybe the big banks like Barclays, they just minimize the business portions of remittance, like based on the individual, not businesses, of course. So I think that digital transformation based on the P2P is something that we need to understand. So I think the VR, of course, AR, VR, or maybe mobility, the form of it, they can be shown different way, but eventually that also should be different, like a year by year or something. So just nobody can really expect what's going to happen. Just like a movie in the Back to the Future. If you just like drive a car into, let's say, 2025, maybe some of my prediction could be right or maybe entirely wrong. So we should be very careful to estimating what kind of the solution should be the key thing in the future. Because the electricity cars also, we're talking about the battery systems, we're talking about, the engine system, all different. So for sure, there's no car manufacturing company. It's the boundaries of the industries now is really complicated, right? So I think that the Tesla, for example, they don't want to be called themselves as the car manufacturer. They're talking about data company. So every resources of what they actually have produced by now is sharing the data, and the given data they actually analyze the data that they can extend to more markets. So Uber, even Airbnb. But think about it. Even a few months ago, the market, I think the potential in terms of their growth is amazing. But during pandemic, Airbnb, Uber, I don't know. Like the last time I used Uber was actually 4 months ago, right? And even the Skyscanner, I'm actually big clients to Skyscanner all the time. I never use them now, so that's the thing. So uncertainty level is really spread out among the businesses and the community. So if we just like approach the kind of individual solutions in tech, that will be very, very risky. So it should be, thinking about kind of a platform. So a platform contains something. Maybe I can call it smart city, or maybe just like prop tech city here in New York. So it depends on the conditions of the city everywhere. So I think that Kolkata or Gurugram in India, their small city content should be definitely different from London and New York City. Singapore, of course, different. And Curitiba in Brazil, São Paulo, Brazil, definitely different. And Montenegro is different. So, this kind of organism, every city cannot be the same, just like a fingerprint. So if you think that, okay, so for example, AR/VR is really successful, for example, in, let's say, Berlin, in Germany. You never see it to be really happening in New York, right? I told you, the mentality is way different. Mentality from the leadership, even the people, the residents. So the city might be evolved in different ways, all different ways. I'm talking about the standardizations on the technology, something, but but the thing is, it's still battling field between the countries because they want to actually take leadership on that. Just like see that the Huawei, the China and the United States. It's kind of big. It's like a war based on those kind of standardizations. That was, never-ending story. So I think that
and it's an interesting question. And what do you think about new startups and pilots? What is your advice for the startups to stay alive right now?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What is your advice for the startups who should stay alive?
Okay, right stay alive for startups. Well, definitely they have to survive, kind of surviving mode. I don't think they can actually just anyway they generate the revenue anywhere. But I think that some of the startup they have to just cooperate together. They have to minimize. They have to kind of stick with a slim strategy. And they have to rethink about their business model. Startups, the beauty of startups, they can change their business model or philosophy anytime soon. You can really apply this kind of things to the big companies. But that's the beauty of the startups as well. So I think that the reason why the more than 10 unicorns popped up through the Level 39 ecosystem in London, because we trying to put everybody together. So I never seen anybody brought their ideas or solutions from the beginning that they never stick with that. Most of the the successful companies at Level 39, they changed it during their staying and during their collaborations with the other startups or with other enterprises. I think that the reason why universe is beautiful because it's not about one specific color. It's all mingled of different colors, just like rainbows. Why rainbows so beautiful? Because like the perfect match between the 7 different colors. So the collaboration, mixture, that's the something that they have to do. They have to rethink about what maybe they trying to understand or study themselves again. So they created their business model or solutions. This is right because they have to be really, flexible in terms of changing something. They shouldn't be afraid of changing something at the moment because already we are changed by the external risk, big risk. It's called the COVID-19. So I think during this time, startups, of course, they should just like crouching tiger, they should do rethink and everything.
Yeah, interesting. And what is your advice for the investors? What they should looking for?
Right. So I think that a lot of investors, they now realize that the world and their the investment, portfolio or investment philosophy is not the same as before. So they have to admit.
What is the different? Yeah, what is the different?
I mean,
before.
Yeah. So
before
like
the COVID and like the after, post-COVID.
Yeah, post-COVID is very different, very, very different. So I think that even uncertainty level is much more higher than before, right? So as I said, if they actually had a portfolio of Uber or Airbnb or something else, right? It's not about it. It definitely changed. I know a lot of companies now, it's highly beneficial during pandemic, like Amazon, like e-commerce companies, or Apple, like, the market capitalization is really, really high. I think they're probably maybe $2 trillion or something. And so like a lot of the beneficial companies, they also getting more benefits, but I'm afraid of the bubbles that's going on now because, the real physical economy is almost doomed, but, I think the stock market is really, really high. So there's like kind of unstable gap between the kind of the two things. I think that their strategy investing in those kind of portfolio or in terms of solutions, technologies, and anything is not going to be the same. They have to rethink about the way of the investment. If they have to think about 3 years, 4 years, something like that, mostly like investors, they think about the ROIs about 3.5 years and 4 years or something like that. The length of time of the ROI cannot be the same as well. It will be different. And also, I don't know, they are actually just maybe thinking about what kind of industry, for example, healthcare, because a lot of people are talking about healthcare. So do we have to invest in more healthcare? But we're talking about what is the name of the startups based in Boston in terms of the vaccine thing. I don't remember the name yet, but we may hear this kind of things every week or something. Okay, this guy is actually producing new vaccines or treatment or something. But I believe that this will be. I'm not going to say this is fake news, but this is also another trend. During the very unstable era. So I think that the investors needs to think about the physical and stable investment chunk of the portfolio, but they have to extend much more like unclear or uncertainty level. But in this time, I think that they should focus on people rather than the company or technologies, because technology, service, and solution could be changing all the time, but people never change. So I think this is time for them to dig more capable people or high people around the world. I think that will be really feasible during this time. And because more people use the YouTube and LinkedIn So everybody connected. And if I think that investors are really active and or really positive or not really lazy, then they can easily find out something. So maybe through the kind of text samples or something. So that's something that we are trying to make some kind of roles in there. So we're trying to open the platform, then we invite people, high potential people and companies, and then probably investors to take a look at them and technologies, and probably with their way of thinking, or because the new generation, another newborn regeneration, will be way different people. So already, I mean,
Why? What does that mean?
think about it.
I think
These new kids, like teenagers, they don't go to school. The schools are shut down. So most of us never experienced this kind of thing before, right? So they spend more time with their parents, or they spend more time with dogs, pets, or maybe probably the friends, not physical contact, untact friendship throughout the game stuff and the social networks. So this generation now growing up in teenagers, like under 18. I think the investors needs to study them more, because they are the future of our society and economy. So nobody cannot tell anything really something precise at the moment.
yeah, you're right. Okay, and last question. What do you think about future of finance, decentralized finance or neobanks? How it could be after the COVID?
So, for example, I try to actually send some money to the one specific companies, and I'm actually using Citibank. So I visited the Citibank branch 2 months ago. It was closed. And one time I was there, I just waited for 2 hours. Right. So there are already a lot of the financial services done by the internet. So internet banking stuff will be really huge spot for the investment as well. And I think that some of the countries like South Korea, they granted 3 internet banks, but that internet banks is kind of difficult. I mean, in different form, but I think that this is like, you can say that internet banking 1.0. So after post COVID-19, we'll experience 2.0, 3.0. So much more people, they don't want to actually spend time, working on the banking stuff. When I was the college students back in 1990s, I was even in the queue for 4 hours to to get the money from my checking account. So I think that the banking service will be dramatically changed. So even you can, I'm not quite sure what kind of the app you use. So many like the remittance, the banking stuff, the online, and of course, like security is another issue. But I think the cybersecurity and the online banking, like internet banking, will be evolved very, very fast. So and also the insurance. Think about insurance. Think about what else? Yeah, kind of transactions and based on blockchain. So blockchain was actually okay. So let's try just a little test kind of mindset. Now is okay. We got to do this. I think the COVID-19 is the big one for all the banks at the moment and people. So blockchain will be formed as the kind of real services, utilizing blockchain, the blockchain basis. Services will be much more varied.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Yes, and see you on the next week because I want to involve more experts and investors and startups from the smart city space.
Mhm.
And because it's really huge term, it's really important for the impact investment and for our spots in Dallas as well in next year. Thank you so much and have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Regards to Sujan as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was crazy. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye then.
See you.